สถานีวิทยุสรานรม AM1575 การทูตเพื่อประชาชน
เพื่อไทยก้าวไกลทันโลก
สวัสดีค่ะ It is now 6 p.m. here on Radio Saranrom AM1575, the radio station of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, the radio station for People's Foreign Affairs. You are now listening to News and Views with me, Venus Asawapum. Today I will continue with the article on how news is bad for you and tips on meditation. But first, the news. This piece is from the Wall Street Journal. It's on shortage caused by aging workers, education gaps, and immigration curbs that it's stunning the economy in Japan. So from software engineers to waiters, a labor shortage caused by an aging workforce, education gaps, and immigration curbs is stunting economic growth in Japan. In most countries, Japan's 3.4% unemployment rate would be an object of envy, actually, or a signal that signals a robust economic expansion. But instead, Japan might have already slipped into recession, the second in 2 years. Gross domestic product, the broadest measure of a nation's economic activity, shrank at an annualized pace of 0.8% in July to September from the previous 3 months. Government data showed on Monday that following a revise of 0.7% contraction in the previous quarter. So it's been slowly slipping. The labor woes are a continuing challenge for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who came to office 3 years ago on a pledge to an economic stagnation, but has faced a series of intraceable issues from weak consumer spending to companies' reluctance to invest. So the government has recently tried to address the problem by loosening rules to allow more skilled foreign workers into Japan. But those early moves haven't yet had any noticeable effect. The two other biggest hurdles, an aging population and a mismatch of skills, have been even more elusive. The gap between the skills employers require and those available is the biggest in Asia, and has grown in the past 3 years, according to a report published in September by global recruitment company kHz in partnership with Oxford Economics. So, for example, Rakuten, the operator of Japan's largest e-commerce site, hires about 80% of its new engineers from overseas, including from China, India, and the US. The firm's head of global recruiting said, and the foreign applicants have stronger language skills and university-level training in engineering than Japanese graduates. So to work in this field, it's preferable that you have some basic English and programming skills or expertise in other related fields, said the Taiwanese software engineer who works at a Tokyo software company. So companies looking for low-skilled service workers are also struggling to find them. It's not only the skill fields, but the low-skill service as well. Some of the biggest shortages are for positions such as security guard, restaurant server, and care provider. Sukiya, a chain of 24-hour restaurants serving cheap beef and rice bowls, must now close about 1/5 of its nearly 2,000 nationwide outlets during the late night hours because of a lack of employees. And the shortage of workers, skilled and unskilled, is hurting Japan's economy. An expected cumulative deficit of about 1 million employees in 2015 and 2016 could cost up to 2% of gross domestic product, or about $86 billion. So the labor shortage, it's also likely limiting the effects of extensive monetary and fiscal stimulus measures implemented under the current government, according to the IMF, and the effect on pay increases has been muted, surprising some economists. So wages aren't rising fast enough, and it's weighing on household spending, which in turn is a drag on Japan's economy. There are pockets of strength. Tech companies tend to spare no expense in search of talent, driving salaries for software engineers sharply higher in recent years. But still, overall, nominal wages are rising far more modestly. Economists often blame the structure of Japan's labor market for the modest pay rises. Nearly 40% of the workforce now holds temporarily, often part-time positions that pay far less than permanent ones, nearly double the percentage 2 decades ago. As permanent jobs have declined over the past 3 years, government statistics show the number of these non-regular jobs are still rising as companies try to save money and sidestep labor laws that make layoffs difficult. So I think this is a trend that needs to be seriously looked at and regulated by governments. And it's happening not only in Japan but all over the world. The dual labor market also contributes to the skill shortage because companies spend far less money training non-regular workers than permanent ones. This is limiting Japan's productivity and potential growth. So at the urging of the business community, the government is retooling Japan's public university to produce graduates with skills better tailored to the job market. He also has successfully, Mr. Abe's government has successfully encouraged more women and seniors to enter or remain in the workforce. That's another way to solve the problems on a short term. The government also aims to double the number of foreign IT workers to 60,000 by year to 2020, and it also recently proposed expanding a guest worker program for unskilled foreign laborers. But Mr. Abe has ruled out a significant increase in immigration despite many economists' contention that it is essential to meet Japan's long-term demographic challenges. The IMF said recent policy moves were steps in the right direction but likely to have a limited impact. It said Japan spends far less than other advanced countries on active labor market policies while relying the least on foreign labor. So that's the news part of the program. I'd like to get back to the article that we have left off last time on how news is bad for you. So we've gone through a few things of how it has affected our life, and maybe it's probably a good thing to limit your news consumption, especially nowadays with access to social media on your mobile phone. You're bound to have alerts going on just around the clock. And so news, why is it bad? News inhibits thinking. Thinking requires concentration, and concentration requires uninterrupted time. News pieces are specifically engineered to interrupt you. They are like viruses that steal attention for their own purposes. News, the short ones especially, makes us shallow thinkers, but it's worse than that. News severely affects memory. How about that? There are two types of memory. The long-range memory's capacity, it's nearly infinite. But working memory, it's limited to a certain amount of slippery data. The path from short-term to long-term memory, it's a choke point in the brain. But anything you want to understand must pass through it. If this passageway is disrupted, nothing gets through. And because news disrupts concentration, it weakens comprehension as well. Online news has an even worse impact. In a 2001 study, 2 scholars in Canada showed that comprehension declines as the number of hyperlinks in a document increases. That's quite interesting, isn't it? And why is that? It's because whenever a link appears, your brain has to at least make a choice not to click, which in itself, it's already distracting. You don't even have to get to the news to read it, to get distracted, but just by the appearance of the link alone and your brain has to process it. It's distracting. So news, it's an intentional interruption system. News also works like a drug. As stories developed, we want to know how they continue. With hundreds of arbitrary storylines in our heads, this craving, the curiosity kills the cat, I suppose. This craving, it's increasingly compelling and hard to ignore. Scientists used to think that the dense connections formed among the 100 billion neurons inside our skulls were largely fixed by the time we reach adulthood. So today we know that this is not the case. Nerve cells routinely break old connections and form new ones. The more news we consume, the more we exercise the neural circuits devoted to skimming and multitasking, while ignoring those used for reading deeply and thinking with profound focus. And this is true. There's a recent study about concentration, that most people concentration on any given time has decreased from, I think, 12 seconds to less than 8 something seconds. So it's been on the decline, and I think it's tidbits of flashing informations might have something to do with it. And most new consumers, even if they used to be avid book readers, have lost the ability to absorb lengthy articles or books. For after 4 or 5 pages, they get tired, their concentration vanishes, they become restless. It's not because they got older or their schedules become more onerous. It's because the physical structure of their brains has changed. And I have to confess, this actually happened to me. I used to read a lot every year, and sometimes if it's something I'm really interested in, I could finish a book overnight. But currently I'm on several books at the same time, and I can only manage maybe 5 to 10 pages per sitting, only because I find my brain getting too tired to concentrate and process the information, and I need to stop and do something else, or change books, or go online and read something on social media. Otherwise, if I keep going on and on, my brain just wouldn't process information anymore, and it's a waste of time. I have to come back and reread it. So I find that quite interesting. That could be what's happening. Also, news wastes time. If you read the newspaper for 15 minutes each morning, then check the news for 15 minutes during lunch and 15 minutes before you go to bed, then add 5 minutes here and there when you're at work, then count distraction and refocusing time. And this is not just about news, social media, so you will lose at least half a day every week. Information is no longer a scarce commodity, but attention is. You are not that irresponsible with your money, reputation, or health, so why give away your mind? News makes us passive. News stories are overwhelmingly about things you cannot influence. The daily repetition of news about things we can't act upon makes us passive. It grinds us down until we adopt a world view that it's pessimistic, desensitized, sarcastic, and fatalistic. The scientific term is learned helplessness. It's a bit of a stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if news consumption at least partially contributes to the widespread disease of depression. News, unfortunately, kills activity. Finally, things we already know limit our creativity. This is one reason that mathematicians, novelists, composers, and entrepreneurs often produce their most creative works at a young age. Their brains enjoy a wide, uninhabited space that emboldens them to come up with pursue novel ideas. And it's I guess this premise is interesting because the new generation nowadays are exposed to tidbits and news and I guess short information from social media bombarding to them every day via mobile gadgets like I wouldn't give example, but there are tons of those available that people carry around, and they feel like they have to take a look at it every 5 seconds. Even in BTS, if you get on a public transportation, you don't find people reading books or talking to each other anymore. Most just fish out their phone and start swiping away, and that could actually not only cost us creativity, but it could cost the whole country's productivity. So society needs journalism, but in a different way. Investigative journalism is always relevant, and we need reporting that policies polices our institutions and uncovers truth. But important findings don't have to arrive in the form of news. Long journal articles and in-depth books are good too. And of course, the saranrom radio programs. Over the millennia, ancient Tibetan monks have used meditation to find inner tranquility, and they're not the only culture to do so. Modern researchers have known for decades that meditation can improve someone's physical and mental health by relieving stress, lowering blood pressure, and improving mood. In recent years, neuroscientists have taken a more serious look at the changes in brain structure underlying the benefits of meditation. Specifically, they've focused their research on mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation challenges people to fix their attention on their senses in the current moment for a specific time period, normally for 10 to 20 minutes. Several studies have confirmed that meditation increased the volume and density of the hippocampus, a brain region that is involved with regulating emotions. The hippocampus is also associated with long-term memory formation. So all is not lost in the new world of social media and constant new flashes. Scientists also found that expert meditators seem to develop a highly wrinkled cortex, the brain's outer layer. Increasing the wrinkling in the cortex increases the overall surface area, resulting in higher brain connectivity in the region. We depend on the cortex for our abstract thoughts and higher thinking abilities. Meditation also found to counteract attention span difficulties, reduce anxiety, and slow down the brain's normal aging process. There is mounting evidence that meditation brings about many positive changes in the brain. So perhaps it's time to start meditating. I'd like to share my personal experience on meditation just a little bit. If you have a Buddhist temple in your area, it's worth a visit. They usually offer free guided meditation sessions. And this is not just in Thailand, it's all over the world. People of all faiths are welcome at a Buddhist temple to try out the meditation. However, I find an easy way for a beginner to start meditating. First, you can set an alarm clock to 5 minutes. There is no need to meditate for a long time to reap the benefit. And you don't have to start at 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It could be quite discouraging for someone who hasn't meditated before. And then you can increase the time as you progress. And the alarm is so that you don't have to worry whether you're doing too little or too much. And of course, at some point, you won't need to set the alarm anymore. You can start by training your mind to focus. Start from feeling, having, the sensation, focusing, feeling your toes, and then moving upward to your calves, your knees, for example, and relaxing body parts while moving up slowly to feeling the breathing through your nose. And then focus on the breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, and breathe out, slow and deep. Try to focus on the breathing, and don't worry too much about clearing your mind. If something pops up in your head, just observe it and acknowledge its presence. Then go back to focus on the breathing. Be aware of the nature that everything comes and goes, including your thought, so there is no need to fight it. I started meditation seriously when I was about 10, and I used to do it for an hour every night or so before bed. Now I do that when I row, when I exercise. Meditation, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't require one to sit still with eyes closed. The trick is to focus. You can even meditate while, lying on the bed and go into sleep just like that. And you will experience a good quality sleep and you will wake up refreshed. So try it today. Before we end the program, I'd like to share with you a universal message from อาจารย์ชยสาโร which I find quite timely for what's going on around the world at the moment. And the message begins with, we can recognize fear and anger as normal reactions to aggression without lashing out wildly in order to make those feelings go away. We cannot expect too much from this world. As long as foolish, immature people can find justification for their actions in philosophies and religious texts, there will never be true peace. What we can do is to cultivate a boundless compassion accompanied by a wisdom that is calm, cool, and alert. The wisdom we need to deal with complex problems comes from clarity of mind, not outraged emotion. The Buddha taught us that hatred is never overcome by hatred. If we hate those that hate us, then we too become haters, no better than them. All that results is that the total amount of hatred in the world increases. So that concludes our program for today. If you have any further inquiries, questions, or comments, please write a letter or send a postcard to Venus at Sawatpum at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, 443 Rama 6 Road, Ratchathewi, Bangkok, 10400. Or you can email me at saranrom.mfa.go.th, as well as follow me in other programs on Facebook and YouTube, Saranrom Radio. Thank you for tuning into News and Views. Have a very pleasant evening. สวัสดีค่ะ